Hi everyone, welcome to Data Platform Virtual Summit 2022. My name is Pedro Reis and I'm here to present to you the session about Power BI metrics, the ultimate piece for top management. So, let me introduce myself before we get started. I'm data team leader at Natixis. I manage multiple business intelligence and big data teams. I'm Microsoft Data Platform Most Valuable Professional. I'm Microsoft Certified Trainer. And I'm also the co-founder and leader of the Power BI Portugal group. We organize meetups mostly every month. So if you guys are interested, feel free to join. We organize both in Portuguese and in English. Session objectives. First of all, this is a new product that we're talking about, a new product that has some iterations. It's constantly evolving. So first of all is the why. Why do Power BI scorecards matter? What is their place? What is the interest? Secondly, setting up your first scorecard product. What should you take in consideration? And I'll give you the quick guide in order to do this the first time. Then I'll provide some more advanced considerations for building the scorecards. We'll do a deep dive in terms of the technicalities of building a scorecard and thinking about the connection between the different reports that will feed the scorecard. And I'll guide you through a possible implementation strategy top-down in order to have a successful adoption in your corporation. Finally, we'll end with the key takeaways and a recap from the session. So, are you guys ready? Let's get started. I will turn off my camera so that we can focus on the content. Okay. So, why scorecards? What is the place and why do scorecards matter? As you know, we have for a long time, since the very beginning of Power BI, two different products, the reports and the dashboards, of course sustained by the datasets, but mostly the reports and the dashboards. And now we have a new one, which is the scorecard. If between the previous two there could be already some confusion, with the third one, it becomes increasingly complex, and it's important to clarify the definition before proceeding and selecting which one is more appropriate for each use case. So, I will give you some images which might be illustratory of the different products. A report might look something like this, a dashboard something like this, and a scorecard something like this. Let's go through the definitions. A report. A report is basically a document that presents information in an organized format for a specific audience and purpose. This means that sometimes the reports can be more graphical, more tables, or can be less graphical and have a higher percentage of text. And so a report will usually have multiple pages and it will not be just a single page. While on the other hand, a dashboard will be a visual display of all your data. While it can be used in all kinds of different ways, the primary intention is, remember this term, provide information at a glance, such as KPIs. So the reports, multi-page, maybe even filter or slicer interactions, and the report, one single page where you have information at a glance. That is basically the difference. Where does a scorecard come in? Well, the scorecard provides a relevant range of financial and non-financial information that supports effective business management. Can you support business management with reports or dashboards? Certainly you can, but a scorecard is configured specifically usually for high top management that takes decision at a high level in the corporation. So that's why you will see that some of the KPIs are very specific and it's a little bit different than a dashboard, which might be more focused and more useful for a specific department. So it's important to introduce the term of what is a balanced scorecard. And this term came to become more aware to the businesses in around the 1990s, because there was a strong, it's very easy for someone analyzing a company to focus on the financial KPIs, while there are multiple KPIs that are also relevant to have a full picture of a corporation and its performance. So not only to analyze it in terms of the financial performance, but also in terms of the customer focus, Is the company gaining more customers? Is the company increasing the ticket from the customers? Also, the learning focus, if the company is evolving, if it's growing in a sustainable manner, and also the process focus, looking at the internal processes and the efficiency of the corporation to see how the progress is going. So, let's talk about some considerations towards setting up your first scorecard. So, the first thing you need to know is about the license. If you are already minimally familiarized with Power BI, you will know that there is a Power BI Free, Power BI Pro, and Power BI Premium or Premium per user. To use Power BI metrics and create scorecards, you will need to have a Power BI Pro license. So it's very simple. You can create with Pro, share with users with Pro, or you can create with Premium and share with users that have a free account. It's exactly the same thing as creating reports or dashboards. It's the same licensing model. In the demonstration I will make, it will be in a Pro environment, so we will see that it works perfectly in Pro. What are some of the scorecards components? When we will land in a specific page of scorecards, you will see that you will have an overview on the top to see basically how many goals, and then the status of the different goals. And you will also then have a pane on the left side in order to view all the goals that you have configured. This is what we're going to create in this session. Who is the owner of the goal? What is the status of each of these goals? If it's on track, if it's at risk, etc. What is the current value of the goal and the comparison versus a specific target? Here's the goal, here is the target, and the deviation. A small spark line showing the progress, and what is the due date, and if there are any notes associated with this metric. So these are the components that we'll analyze today. So let's go to the demo and see this in action. And so we have here already a scorecard created. This is going to be what we're going to produce. First step is when you are in a workspace, as you could create a new report or a new dashboard, you now also have the option to create the scorecard. All right. So let's try it out. I can create a new scorecard. I can say that this is my scorecard test. I can see a description, testing, the new goals feature, and I can create in a new workspace, or I can use an existing one. I'm going to use the existing one. And when you drop here, you have your scorecard created. Now we can add different goals. For instance, revenue, it's the name of my goal. And then I can say what is the start and end date. So it starts in January and ends in December, and I can save it. So I can create different goals, and this is the screen that I have to view my progress. And in the end, I'll also have a summary of a number of goals that I created and the status, the breakdown by status for each of the goals. Okay, this is a sample how to create a basic scorecard. I have already one created that we'll use for our demo. And this is mimicking exactly what we have talked about, which is the balanced scorecard. So we'll have KPIs on the financials, you'll have on customer, on learning and growth, and also you'll have KPIs on internal business processes. Okay. Some of them, you can already see some values here. For instance, on the learning and growth, this is like a consultancy firm, so we want to have more members that have the Power BI certification and more MVP team members, more members that are Azure Solution Expert architects. So you can see how many, 5 out of 8 is my target, 3 out of 5, etc., etc. So we have some KPIs already. On the number of customers, we can see 262. On the new customers onboarded, 59 out of 45. So we can already monitor a few of the KPIs we have here. Now I want to create for this demo the financials part of my scorecard. So what I'm going to do is to click edit. I think I reordered this. One thing I can do is if I edit, I can move the tabs, okay? So this tab here, for instance, let me go here on the financial. Here. Okay, one item selected. And now I want to create a new goal. So what I'm going to do is inside the financials, I'm going to create, for instance, revenue year to date. And this will have a start date, which will be from the 1st of January up to the 31st of December. So let me create it. And this revenue is inside my financials. So I'm finding a strange error here. Let me reload my page here because I'm getting an error. Revenue to date. Okay. Now I don't know what was happening, but you should be able to drag and drop, meaning that I can place this revenue year to date at the top level, or I can drag it and make it a sub level. Okay. So, for instance, I can click on the financials and I can add another sub goal. Another sub goal can be the profits year to date. Also, start date on the 1st of January. I will save it. And you can see, so I can move it and place it on top, on the bottom, at a different sub level. So very flexible to move and to reorganize your KPIs within scorecards. Let's create just a final one. So another one, let's make it market share. This is more based on the customer, and we can move it later on to the customer, but I'll place it here in the top for our demonstration purposes. So 31st of December, and now we have 3 KPIs that we want to track and set up for our demonstration, okay? So now, on the market share, the first thing we can do is when we have one of these KPIs, we can do manual check-ins, all right? So for instance, I can do a check-in, let's say, if it was the 31st of January, and this was already active, let's say, since the beginning of the year, and I'll say that this is 0.125, so 12.5%. I can do a check-in. I see a single point mapped here. Let me do another one. The next one, I'll make it in February with a higher value, 0.131. Another check-in. Let's make it in the end of March. In the end of March, 10127. Let's continue to do a few more check-ins, and you see the chart is evolving with the check-ins that I'm doing here. Let's do 1 or 2 also in April. So let's say that in end of first week of April, we'll have 0128. Another one in a week later, 0129. And just a final one, let's say here 220128. Okay. So we have a couple of values already here on the check-ins. Another thing that we can do is for each of these check-ins, I could also, during the edit of my value, I could also add a comment here. So it's another possibility. So for instance, I can include a note. So in the last day, let's say going well, and 0.130. Save. And I can see also here my comment going well. All right. So we have our chart set up. We see how we can do manual check-ins and comments. And then when I go back, you can see that the value is here updated. And now I have a small chart, like a spark, kind of a spark line that I can follow up the progress on my KPI. So you see, The different options that I have when I click on one of my KPIs, I have the details where I did the check-ins. I have the history, and I can already see the variations between each of the check-ins that were done. I can also do status rules. We'll go to that in a second. And in the settings, I have what is called a tracking cycle. Tracking cycle, this is just for the purpose of the small sparkline chart, meaning that right now you see this chart here. If I edit, not here, if I click on it and I edit that I want to have a monthly frequency tracking, I will say that I want to track it on the 31st of each month, and it will open a pop-up saying that for months with fewer days that you've selected, the cycle will fall on the last day of the month. So our problem, for instance, for February is fixed, and I want to track this on a monthly basis. You see that I did check-ins on January, February, March, and April. So let's see what happens. So let me refresh, and you see that the chart has changed because now it's doing the comparison on a monthly cycle basis. If I would click on it again and change that I want to track it on a daily basis, let's track it. I will refresh it. And you see now the chart has updated because I have different values. So the chart is updated accordingly to the cycle that I want to track. Okay. So let me refresh. So I want to keep it. Let's keep it as a monthly. I think this will be more not on the 28th, but on the 31st. We don't want to track this on a daily basis. It doesn't make sense. So after we have set up this market share too, what I can do also, I can edit, and you can see that I can set up the format. So for instance, this will be a percentage, and the target will be 0.135 in percent. Let me save it. This is make it more readable and more intuitive. And now you can see we are at 13% out of 13.5. That is my target. We are 0.76% down month over month. So in the end of month versus the last closed month. Now this is making it much more intuitive and readable for a C-level executive to track down. Okay. So the next one that we want to update will be on the revenue. So on the revenue, what we can do is I can connect. So we did manual check-ins. Now on the revenue, what I want to do is to connect directly to my reports. So what I can do is I have an option to connect directly to data. And I have reports. I can see different reports that I have access. I can search for all the reports in my organization. So I will use one of the reports I've just shown you in Power BI Desktop, the scorecard demo report. So you can enter, like you are navigating inside any report that you have in the organization that you have access to, and then you can pinpoint exactly the KPI that you want to track. So I have here this one here with the revenue year to date, 27 million. So I'll connect to this one here and I'll save it. So my KPI now is synced 27 million. I don't have a target. Now let's imagine, let me refresh this. Let's imagine that my target would be 23 million. So let's save it. And now what I'm going to do is to set up status rules. So this KPI has already started, of course, but let me make it here. But I want now to set up status rules. Okay, so I can click here. I could manually, theoretically, set up the status here with the status rules, or I can just set up different rules. So I'm going to set up a new rule. And the rule is if the value is greater than, okay, 100% of my target, then I'm on track. Let me add a new one. If the value is greater than 90%, then it's going to be at risk, and otherwise it's going to be behind. So I'll save it, and let's see what happens. Okay, so right now, as I am ahead, 27 out of 23, I'm on track. If the value, some weird bug, if the value of my KPI would be not 23, it would be, for instance, 20, let's say 29, you can see that the KPI automatically changes and now it's at risk, all right? So automatically this updates. So, and if I change it again, I'm having a weird bug, it's not normal. So I will change the value, let's say to 26. I'll save it, and now I am on track. Of course, that I can also connect this KPI directly. So when my value, let me open, when I can connect directly also to my report here, I have also the revenue year-to-date target, so I'll connect automatically because I don't want to be updating stuff manually, so I'll connect it here. And now, after I do my save, you'll see that I'm at 27 out of 23.85, so I am on track. So our revenue year-to-date KPI is automated, all right? We want to do the same thing for the profit, but now I have a small problem, which is, let me try, I want to find the profit KPI, on the revenue. So on the revenue, you see that when someone did this report, they created with a technique that you basically have bookmarks, meaning that you can click on here and you see the chart updates to market share. You can click here and it updates to revenue. All right. So let's try to connect now to our revenue in our scorecard, to our profit. So I want to connect my profit. My profit. So I'll go to the other page. I think it's this one here. No, on the profit, I'll go to it in a second. I still cannot do the profit. What I want to show you first, it's let's automate the market share. So in the market share, now I want also to replace the market share. I didn't say, okay, market share. So I want to connect this to my data. So I'm going to go here. So I want to connect, but I don't want to connect to a single value because I want to have all the updates for the entire range of values for the year. So I'll try to find another page. I think it's this one here. So you see that someone built this navigation through bookmarks, and so I can click on these buttons and I change the chart, but I cannot actually click here on my market share. So it doesn't matter because I can actually click here on my chart and I can get the value either on the market share or on the market share target. But this is not exactly what I want because this will return me a single value. So I have an option, which is I click in the chart, I expand it to the daily view. And now when I click, I have this option which says I can track just this data point or I can track all the data in this time series. This is exactly what I want, to track all the data in the time series, and I can connect. So I will link my market share KPI, and now I will also link my market share target exactly with the same technique. So I'll go here, I will expand, I will click in the chart, and I want to track my average market share target and track all the data because I have dynamic targets, and I save it and I updated the two connections. Okay, So now when I click on it, you see exactly the evolution, okay? Day by day or month by month, according to your tracking period, but all the data in the past was automatically updated with the values that you have in your chart. So this is great. You can start with something manual, and then you can update your entire scope this way. So very cool. Other point that we can also do here, in the settings, you see, if I wanted to disconnect also this link to the report, I have here an option to remove the connection for the values and clear the values when connecting to a new report. Or I also have here for the target value, I can also, for the current and for the target, I can disconnect if I want in the future. If I misclicked or something, then I can disconnect this. I'm going to go to read mode. And when I am in read mode, you see that, for instance, as these KPIs are linked, I have here this small chart button, meaning that I can open the report. If you have like a large, you see, for instance, I have here the report which sustains the data for new customers. I could have reports sustaining each of these parts. So I can connect this scorecard with a lot of reports. I can, for instance, go to the report where I can follow this market share. And when I click on it, it will open the report in the view that sustains the data that I am providing there in the KPI, okay? So we just have one more to do, which on the financial part, which is going to be the profit year to date. But unfortunately, we do not have, you see in the report, we do not have on any of the pages the profits available. So what can we do? There is also something, either I need to have somewhere in the report where the KPI is accessible, okay? But unfortunately, I don't have, but if there is a possibility that in your Power BI options and settings, if you can activate in the report settings the personalized visuals, if you can activate this one, this means that later on, the users will be able to personalize, the report readers can personalize, and they'll be able to click on it and change the visuals in the Power BI service, okay? So I actually already have it this way published in the Power BI service. So I'm going to try to connect now my profit year to date. I want to edit it, and I want to try to connect it. Where is it? Profit year to date. I want to edit it, and I want to connect it. I will open my report. I want to try to connect it. So now I don't have directly the profit, I just have revenue. So I can personalize this visual. And in the visual, sorry. I don't want this in the top. So in the visualization line chart and the values I will get from my data, I think it's a profit. I'd like to fix this. Oh, it's strange. Let me refresh this. Also a small bug. So my profit, connect to data, scorecard demo, personalize, edit. This is really crazy. So unfortunately, it's not working. Let me try on the other page. If I can personalize it here. No. No, unfortunately, it's not working. because I cannot close this one and open the other one. Let me try this way. Line chart, values. I cannot edit. Okay, I can click here and edit and change it to profit. And on this one, profit, it's a small weird bug on the interface. Okay, so I was able to change it, the KPIs that we have here in the chart. And now I can navigate also to the lower level, to the daily basis. This means that now I can click and track for my profit year to date. I can track all the data in this series and I can connect. Okay, so profit year to date linked. For my target, let's go there too. So I will personalize again, and I want this one, profit year to date, this one, profit year to date target. Later on, I will report this bug in the interface, which is really strange. Now I will expand it. And now I can track my profit year to date target. I can link to all data in this series. I can connect and I can save it. Okay, so it's also updating the value you can see here and getting all the past values too. Filling also the history with all the values that were retrieved before. And so now we have everything automated. I can go to read mode and you have the report linked for the revenue, for the profit, and for the market share. Everything is updated. I can move, if I want, the market share to the customer section. I can go to read mode and everything is automated on this part that we have done. All right. So let's go back to our presentation. So one of the points that is important to mention is the types of charts that you consider, because if it's like a card, you can only retrieve the last value. As I've shown, if it's like a line chart, you will be able to retrieve all the data points in the entire history. So you need to connect to a visual which sustains the type of analysis that you want to bring to your scorecard. The report tile placement also, meaning like I was trying to click on a specific tile and I cannot because I have a bookmark on top of it, it will not work. The date column, so I need to, if I want, for anything that I want to connect to my scorecard, I need to be able to click on it in the report, okay? Date column availability. This means that I also need to have the date granularity available if I want to track all the data points, otherwise I can't. Plus is good versus less is good. It's easier for the day-to-day or month-to-month evolution that was tracked in the scorecards. It works better with something that is positive is good versus something that less is good. Meaning that if you have like a compliance KPI, if you want to bring it to a scorecard, it's easier to monitor the compliance versus monitor the non-compliance. So let's say 98% compliance and you increase to 98.5%, it will be good. Otherwise, if you have 2% non-compliance and you go to 1.5% non-compliance, it's actually good, but the scorecard will tell you that it's negative, that you have a decrease of the KPI. So it's a bit, you don't have a good way to tackle this for the moment. The personalization activation, this can be something that according to the report builder and the build permissions to active, it's possible for you to also leverage in order to get to the actual value from the data set that you want. And also the scorecard refresh. What I've shown you, I showed you when you create a scorecard, there is also a data set that is created behind the scenes. I'll also show you in a second. Actually, before this, let's go back to the workspace, and I want to show you that part on the data set. So when we created this balanced scorecard, there is also the creation of a balanced scorecard dataset. And when I go to this dataset, you can see that on this dataset, you can also, if I want, I can create a new report based on this dataset. I can create a report from scratch. And you have actually, so all the values you see here, goals, notes, scorecards. So I can get my goals, if I have the name of my goal and the value. And you can see that I can create a new report based on this. So it's possible if you really want to create a custom report. You can, when you generate a scorecard, you generate a data set and you can use it to create further reports. All right, it's another of the possibilities too. So going back to our presentation, other functionalities that we have available. We can customize columns, customize the columns that we have available, and we can create custom roles. Let me show you these two. So let me go back to our scorecard, not here. So first of all, when I'm in the edit mode, I have here an option to column settings, show and hide columns. If it's not important for me to have the progress chart, I can remove it. You see, it disappeared. Let me put it back. So I can customize the columns and the order of the columns. It's just a small feature. In this wheel, you can also set different levels of permissions. So, for instance, let's edit the permissions. What we can do is to create a new role. Let's try to create a new role, which is financials, access to financial KPIs. Okay, I can create this and say that this role, financials, has access to, for instance, not here, for all of the financial ones. All right. It can view, can update the status and the notes. So this role will have access to the financials. So I can create in the same scorecard, someone has access to the entire thing. Some people might have access just to a part of it in the assignment that I perform. So it's something, also a nice feature. You have also the Power BI goals accessible in mobile. You can see it here. It works really nicely, as the same way as accessing like a dashboard or a report. And you have also the Power BI desktop goals visual. What this means, if I open Power BI desktop, I create a new page. And in the visuals here, I have here the scorecard visual. I will create it here. And now I can link to an existing scorecard. So I have here my balanced scorecard. And it's done. So you see, I have connected to an existing scorecard, and I have brought it to Power BI desktop. So now what is the advantage? Well, if I want to, for instance, to format a couple of properties, if I don't want like the header, if I don't want column headers, or if I want to change, for instance, in the scorecard, I want to have another color. So it's also possible to configure this. It's also a small feature, but just for your awareness that it's possible also to do. How can we implement this across the corporation top-down? Because as you see, this is a top management tool because it's high-level KPIs that need to go then down to the intrinsic report that supports the performance indicator. So my suggestion for this, step one, creating the vision, meaning that first, for the organization to know it's possible to create a scorecard, and secondly, that you don't need to actually have already all the reports in place for you to define what are the key performance indicators for an organization and to set up the vision. So I can go and define, I want HR, I want finance, I want workplace, value creation, client satisfaction, etc. I can create all these KPIs and my vision, and then in the step two, I can assign it. Who is going to be the owner of each of the KPIs, all right? And then after assigning an owner to each of the goals, they can either update the values manually, within their own process. Of course, they already have processes to monitor in some way the data in a more manual or more automated way. And so they can perform the updates, or otherwise in the step 3, they can launch the initiatives in order to launch the automation for each of the KPIs. All right. So then once they have a report, or once they launch an initiative to build the report to sustain the data, it will be possible to do the connection to the data, and the scorecard can connect directly to it. Ownership. Also, each of the leaders will have a personalized landing page to track the goals, meaning when you launch on Power BI, we'll have a page with all the KPIs that are assigned for you. Let's take a look at it. If I go to Power BI scorecards and I can click in my goals tab, you'll see here that I have some KPIs that are assigned to me, like resolution time, stuff like that. I have some sample KPIs here. So we can track in it, and when you click on it, you will go to the report that is sustaining this KPI, all right? So each leader has a landing page with all the KPIs that you are owner, and also you can be part of multiple scorecards. So this is something that also it's interesting for you to know. Resources to study more. Basically, the key resource is a Microsoft documentation on the Power BI goals that you have here. So not too much besides this is written about it. So this is the key point to go. And also where you have the latest updates, like the change from Power BI Premium to Power BI Pro in terms of licensing and all that, it's a place for you to go and get more acquainted with it. I didn't cover here also the integration between Power BI Goals and Power Automate. You can also take a look at it. You also have a page there between Goals and Power Automate. So as a session recap, let's go back to our goals, but in more detail. We talked about why do Power BI scorecards matter, what was the difference between a report, a dashboard, a scorecard, and we've taken a look on how to build your first scorecard. We then set up your first scorecard. We created the components and goals and sub-goals. We did updates in manual mode. We did manual updates. We did check-ins and comments, and then we reconnected the reports to the existing reports. We talked about advanced considerations for scorecard building, that which permissions are needed, the report build permissions enabled, and also the different licensings that you need. We talked about Power BI goals, refreshing of the data set. We didn't talk about this one. Let me show you very quickly. So this is important for you to know also. So on this balanced scorecard data set, when in the schedule refresh, you see that you don't need a gateway for this, because all the reports are already they have their own schedule refresh, and the data set that is created for this is linked to the original data sets and the reports that sustain this. So you just need to set up what is your desired refresh frequency. For instance, I have this refreshed on a daily basis, and you don't need to set up a gateway connection for this specific data set. So this is something that's also important for you to know. We talked about the plus is good or less is good and the report type placement, and also the implementation strategy, meaning top-down vision, the owners starting with manual and then replace it with the automation when the report to sustain it is ready. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you very much. Have a great Everest conference. You have my contacts here, and I'll be available for any questions that you have. Thank you very much, and see you soon.